I'm Melissa. This is Suzanne from the Autism Society of Maryland. Not the hub of technology this evening, unfortunately, but glad to be here. Are we recording, Suzanne? You got it recording?
Yes.
Okay, great. Super. We're very excited to be here. This is a super important topic to explore the differences between calling 911 and calling 988. And we're presenting this evening in partnership, which is even more important, I think, with Parents Place of Maryland and Pathfinders for Autism. And so before we introduce Julie, who's going to be doing our presenting this evening, I want to invite our interpreter, Magda Castro-Lewis, to just give some brief instructions if you are looking for the Spanish language room, how you will access that. Magda?
Yes, good evening. This is Alicia, actually.
Okay, Alicia.
Magda is going to be interpreting, so she's already in the Spanish room.
Perfect.
Sí, buenas noches. Soy Alicia, soy miembro de ALMA, Compañía de Interpretación y Traducción. Y para las personas que necesiten escuchar en español, por favor, vamos a tener traducción simultánea. Entonces vayan, por favor, al círculo. En la parte de abajo de su pantalla puede estar como un icono de un mundo que dice Interpretation, le hacen clic ahí y si no, hay un círculo con tres punticos, entonces le hacen clic a ese y escogen donde dice Interpretation, que es como un mundito. Entonces ahí pueden escoger, dice Listen in, o sea, escuchar en y escogen Spanish. Y desde ahí pueden escuchar la interpretación que va a hacer Magda Castro Luis, nuestra intérprete esta noche. Entonces los dejo para las personas que van a escuchar en español, por favor, pásense a ese lado de la interpretación y los dejo con Magdalena Castro Luis. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Julie is a family navigator with the Parents Place of Maryland, and she has done this for another group and graciously offered to roll this into a webinar for us. So I'm going to turn it right over to her. Julie, welcome and thank you for being here and thank you for your patience.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
While you're doing that, just want to tell folks we are recording the session in English and Spanish. That'll be shared along with Julie's slides in a couple days following this evening's presentation.
Okay. So this webinar is presented by Parents Place of Maryland. Thank you so much to the Autism Society of Maryland and Pathfinders for Autism for having me this evening. I'm going to talk a little bit about 988, 911. I'm going to feature 211 and the Good Samaritan Law because they all walk hand in hand together. As I said, I'm with Parents Place of Maryland, and my name is Julie. I'm a family partner behavioral health specialist. I provide family peer support for families navigating a range of systems, including those related to developmental disabilities, behavioral health needs, substance use challenges, and problem gambling behaviors. And my line of work involves supporting families caring for individuals across the lifespan. So it often overlaps with the services many of you and your loved ones may be accessing right now. For our families supporting teens and adults with IDD or autism, or for self-advocates, it's important to know that if you ever find yourself worried about someone's immediate safety, especially in a possible overdose situation, calling for help is protected under the Good Samaritan Law. So in everyday terms, the Good Samaritan Law means that if somebody may be experiencing an overdose and you may call for help, you may try to help in some way, the law offers protection from certain legal consequences. For families supporting teens and adults with IDD or autism, and for self-advocates, the key takeaway is if something feels medically unsafe, calling for help is protected. You won't be arrested. If you're underage, you won't be arrested just for administering the help. So don't hesitate to call 911 in that instance. And I do want to briefly highlight an important detail. The Good Samaritan Law applies when someone is taking action, either by calling for help or providing assistance. In other words, the protection is there for people who step in. So if you're ever in that situation, taking action like calling 911 is what ensures those protections are in place. When are some appropriate times to call 911? 911 is meant for emergencies. We all know that number. We've known it for decades now. When somebody needs immediate medical attention or there's clear immediate danger to somebody's physical safety, like during a fire or an accident, that's when you call 911. And I do want to acknowledge that families in our community may feel unsafe about calling 911, especially in situations involving disability-related behaviors or communication differences. And that uncertainty, it's very palpable. If you're in a situation that feels overwhelming or unclear, and you're not sure whether it's an emergency, 988, that's a very helpful first step. It can be a great intermediary for you. They can talk you through what's happening and help you decide what to do next. The key message here is if somebody is in immediate danger, call 911. If you're unsure of what to do, 988 can help you think it through. And we know that mental health challenges are more common in the IDD and autism communities than the general population. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Illnesses, or the DSM-5, it notes about 70% of individuals with autism spectrum disorder may have one concurrent mental disorder, and 40% may have two or more co-occurring mental disorders. And that's in comparison with 20% of the general population who experience the same. Even more concerning, people with autism were over 3 times more likely to attempt suicide compared to the general population. With that in mind, it's definitely important for our community to understand what 988 is, how it works, and when it can be a helpful resource. Unlike 911, which responds to immediate medical or safety emergencies, 988 is designed for mental health and emotional crisis. Because 911 has been around for so long, it's often the first number that comes to mind. And part of what we're doing today is building awareness that 988 is another option, and it's one designed specifically for moments that feel overwhelming or unclear. Anecdotally, I noticed that little kids are very aware of 988, and we adults need to catch up. 988 is the suicide and crisis lifeline. It's there for emotional or behavioral health crises and times when somebody is overwhelmed, distressed, or not acting like themselves. But there isn't immediate physical danger there. That's when you call 988. For families in our community, especially those supporting individuals with IDD or autism, these situations can feel confusing or unpredictable, and that's not always clear what to do in the moment. So calling 988, what does it do for us? It connects you with a trained crisis counselor who listens, helps you understand what's happening. They support you and your loved one in the moment, and they can help guide you in deciding next steps and just grounding you when you're feeling overwhelmed. They're trained in this, and that's what they're there for. And it's especially helpful when you need support or clarity. If you're unsure which number to call, that's where 988 really fits. And to understand why 988 exists today, it helps to look back on how mental health crises were handled in the past. For much of the 20th century, these situations were not handled within behavioral health systems. Instead, they were often managed through law enforcement or institutionalization, and that's a whole webinar in itself. But because there weren't strong community-based supports in place, there were people who started grassroots efforts. Those approaches were a part of the system of the past, but they were stigmatizing, they were traumatic, in some cases escalated situations rather than helping. So the grassroots that began springing up in these spaces, people could reach out anonymously and be met with listening and dignity. So that's the root of 988. Over time, those early crisis hotlines began to grow into more coordinated systems. And then in the early 2000s, efforts were made to connect local crisis centers into a national network. And that's where the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline came to be. And research from that period, from its early days, it does show that those services can reduce emotional distress, and it does help lower the risk of suicide during moments of crisis. As the system expanded, more ways to connect were added, and that includes text and chat options, which are still in use today. And it recognizes that not everyone can or wants to speak on the phone in moments of high stress. I know that I lose access to cogent thoughts. So, texting might be for you. It's definitely an option. One challenge, though, was that the original 10-digit number wasn't very easy to remember in crisis. So in 2020, the simple 3-digit number, 988, that was established, and it officially launched in 2022. So again, today, calling or texting or chatting with 988, it connects you directly to a trained mental health professional who listens, helps you understand what's happening, supports you in the moment, and guides you through next steps. 988, it's designed to help people move through the crisis and to let them land safely with a partner. It still allows emergency services to step in if a situation becomes unsafe. So just keep that in mind. It's not to say police won't be dispatched if the situation turns unsafe, but 988 does offer a wonderful intermediary option for those who may be nervous about calling 911. And the great thing is you can text directly, like I said before. If you just can't find the words, they're always a text away. So what exactly happens when you call or text 988? I just want to walk through that with you, just so there's no surprises there. When you call 988, you'll first hear a brief greeting and a short menu. It gives you options like connecting to veteran-specific support or Spanish-speaking counselors. And if you don't select an option, you'll automatically be connected to a crisis counselor, and that's usually a center that's located near you. You may hear music while you wait as they connect you. Then a trained counselor will answer. They'll introduce themselves, assess your safety, ask a few questions to help understand what's going on, and they will listen without judgment. They're going to support you in the moment, and they're going to help you figure out what to do next, how to manage your crisis, and to talk you down. And if that center isn't available, your call automatically is going to be routed to another center, so you're still able to reach somebody. They just might not be within your very local sphere. When you text 988, the process is similar, but it happens through messages instead. You'll receive a few initial prompts, and then you'll be asked some questions to help the counselor understand your situation. And while you're waiting, you'll continue to receive messages guiding you through the process. Once you're connected, the counselor will support you in the same way. They'll be listening, helping you make sense of what's happening and offering guidance. If speaking out loud feels difficult, the texting or chat, that can be a really helpful option. So this slide just sums up what I've been saying to you this whole time. You can see it side by side. 988 connects you to a trained crisis counselor. It's used for emotional, behavioral, or mental health crises, and support is available by phone, text, or chat. 911, that's for urgent, life-threatening emergencies, and it sends police, fire, or emergency medical personnel. And that's used when somebody needs immediate medical help or is in immediate physical danger. And the simplest way to think about it, if there's immediate danger, 911. If the situation is serious but not immediately dangerous, 988 is your strong first option. And do remember, if you call 988 and the situation becomes unsafe, emergency services like 911 can still be involved. So it can be especially difficult in the moment to figure out which number to call, especially if you're supporting somebody else that's in crisis and you're the first responder. You might be confused or overwhelmed. In general, 911 is for situation where there is clear, immediate physical danger or medical emergency that needs urgent attention. 988, that's for emotional or behavioral crises. And that's times when somebody is distressed, if they're scared or they're not acting like themselves, but the situation isn't physically dangerous. And if you're ever unsure which number fits, you can always call 988 first. The crisis counselors can help you think through exactly what's happening and help you decide what the next step should be. And you don't have to make that decision alone. I know that's heavy, so I want to talk about 211. Before situations reach the level of crisis that we were just discussing, there's another resource that can be really helpful, and that's 211. That's for Maryland. 211 Maryland is designed to connect people to support early, and that's when things are starting to feel overwhelming but haven't reached a crisis point yet. And you can call, text, or chat with 211, and they'll connect you to local resources for housing, support, food assistance, mental health services. They walk through financial help and all kinds of goodies. They have over 7,500 resources on hand. So they are also available 24/7. So, Parents Place of Maryland, we operate within business hours like many other people, many other organizations. Maryland 211, they're around whenever you need them. So if something is on your mind, don't hesitate. So we've talked a lot about crisis-related information, 988, 911, Maryland 211 now, and that's a lot to take in. But I want to pause here and remind you that you are already the expert in your own experiences. And one of the most important things that you can do before a crisis is to really think about your needs while things are calm and you have access to all of your brain cells, because when we're in fight or flight, oftentimes we have very narrow vision. So planning ahead while you're calm, you're able to think clearly, communicate your needs. You can make a plan now. Consider what helps you or your loved one to feel safe and supported. Are there sensory preferences that are important to know about? Communication preferences? Maybe you prefer speaking on the phone. Write those things down ahead of time. Make that list accessible to your loved ones. Have an open conversation about it. And think about calming strategies that tend to work well for you. What trusted people do you know who can help? What medications or diagnoses might be important to consider in an emergency? If you have experienced a crisis before, think about that experience and what worked well, what didn't, and what do you wish had gone differently? Were there warning signs that support was needed earlier? And if so, what were they? Talk to your loved ones about it and offer that information. Was there information you wish others had noticed or known? You can tell them when you're calm what to look for and what they may be able to do to help you before it gets to crisis level. You don't want, you just don't want to go through it alone. And you don't have to predict every possible situation. Just think through your needs, what preferences you have ahead of time. So if a crisis does present itself, the people around you have a better understanding of how to best help in that moment. And I want to leave you with a few key numbers you can save and come back to. For mental health or emotional crisis, 988 is the primary source. You can call or text 988 and get directly linked to a trained counselor, as I said. If texting feels easier, you can also text the word home, HOME, to 741-741 to reach a crisis text line. For ongoing support or basic needs, like I said before, 211 Maryland can connect you to local services like housing, food, mental health resources, and NAMI also offers a national helpline for mental health and support and guidance. And if you need in-person urgent mental health care, Shepherd Pratt in our area offers walk-in psychiatric urgent care services here in Maryland. And since we talked about preparing for a crisis before it happens, please consider saving one or two of these numbers so they're available to you if you ever need them. And there's a wonderful resource list in more detail provided by the Autism Society of Maryland. We'll get that to you as well.